Here we go. Number 33. The function r of x is defined by the expression x squared plus 3x minus 18. Use factoring to determine the zeros of r of x. Oh man, take these points and run with it. X squared plus 3x minus 18. These are an easy 2 points, people. Let's do it. Factor it. What adds to positive 3 and multiplies to give... That is an ugly A. I don't know what that was. What adds to give you positive 3 and multiplies to give you negative 18? Those numbers are positive 6 and negative 3. X plus 6, x minus 3. Just to make sure. Positive 6 times a negative 3 gives you a negative 18. And positive 6 minus 3 gives you a positive 3. Good. Equals 0, t-bar it. X equals negative 6, and x is equal to 3. You just take its opposite. So, use factoring to determine the zeros. The zeros are x equals negative 6, and x is equal to 3. Okay. Simple question. Of course, there's a follow-up, though. All right, so the follow-up question is, explain what the zeros represent on the graph of r of x. Okay, so what does this mean, the word 0? That means if you take this, which is a quadratic, now this is just a sketch, I don't know what it looks like, but the sketch, it's saying that the roots, or where the parabola crosses the x-axis, are at the points x equals negative 6 and x equals 3. So to put that into words, you're just going to say that the zeros are the x values. That looks like a V. X values where the function intersects the x-axis. And you're done. Happy, happy. Okay, moving on to number 34. This question was not bad, but I don't like it. The graph below shows Craig's trip to visit his friend in another state. In the course of his travels, he encountered both highway and city driving. Okay, so here we have a pretty funky looking graph, and he encountered both highway and city driving. So let's talk about this. This is the amount of hours, and this is the amount of miles traveled. So he traveled 230 miles in 7 hours. This friend lives pretty far. Okay. Then, here we go. It says, based on the graph, during which interval did Craig most likely drive in the city? Explain your reasoning. Okay. Where did Craig drive in the city? So, this is... I don't like this question, but you know, it is what it is. What you need to know is that city driving has to be like 20-25 miles an hour. If you ever drive into Manhattan, you're not going faster than 30 miles an hour ever, because there's taxi cabs, buses, Ubers, people driving their cars. Every freaking person under the sun is in Manhattan. But that's really what they're going for, like a congested city. You know, they're not talking about Staten Island with the Belt Parkway. You know, you could be going 60 miles an hour on the Belt Parkway, if you know where that is. If you live in the city, you know what I'm talking about. I personally do not live in the city, but I've been there too many times. So they're kind of going for, did you know, or you should know, that Craig is driving in the city from D to E. And if you said B to C, you're wrong, and I'll explain why a little bit later. But he's driving in the city from D to E. Okay. So, state it and explain your answer. So, Craig most likely... Hold on a second, let me make this a little bigger. Craig most likely drove in the city on the interval from 5 to 7, and just make sure that these are closed brackets, because we do have closed dots. Okay, we do have closed dots, so I'm going to put closed brackets. So on the interval from 5 to 7, or you could say or between, or between or between points D and E, because the vehicle was traveling at a rate or speed of 15 miles per hour, which is relatively slow driving for a highway. So Craig must be in the city. Okay, now if you're thinking, or you're asking yourself, well, how did he get 15 miles an hour? I'd be more than happy to show you how he got 15 miles an hour. You go back to your graph. Point D in this case, point D is the point 5, 200, and E is the point 7, 230. All you need to do is calculate the slope of that line. So you do the change in Y over the change in X, which is, again, Y2 minus Y1 over X2 minus X1. You get 230 minus 200 over 7 minus 5. You get an answer of 15 miles per hour. That's how I got that rate. Now, let me just reread what I just wrote. Craig most likely drove in the city between points D and E because the vehicle was traveling at a speed of 15 miles an hour, which is relatively slow driving. It's a pretty slow driving for a highway. So Craig must be in the city. What I don't like about this question is, what if you're on a highway and you hit traffic? Like, I mean, it's a stupid question. Stupid question. I don't like it, but whatever. Okay. Explain what might have happened in the interval from B to C. Okay. So, from B to C, you just need to understand what this is telling you. Notice how the line does not go up. It's actually level. So, Craig drives from 0 miles, and he drives exactly 110 miles. Then all of a sudden, he doesn't go anywhere. That's the key that you needed to get this question right. He doesn't go anywhere. He stopped at the position for an hour and a half. So he stopped somewhere for an hour and a half. So you could put a whole bunch of answers for this. As long as you get the gist or the idea is that he stopped for an hour and a half, you got this question right. So I said the following answers. You could pick any one you want, or you could just compare. Between points B and C, I put the following answers. Traffic was at a standstill, meaning it's not moving, due to a major car accident. Actually, wait, let me rephrase it. Traffic was at a standstill for an hour and a half. For an hour and a half due to a major car accident. Okay? That's the first choice you could pick. Again, there's many choices you could do. Second one was Craig took a nap at a rest stop. Don't know why he would do that. Or you could say that Craig stopped for food at a fancy restaurant. Doesn't have to be fancy. It could just be food, restaurant, whatever it is. You could make the restaurant be anything you want. You could say that Craig got a flat tire and he waited for like AAA to arrive. If you don't know what AAA is, that's a roadside assistance. But anything that shows that he stopped and not moving, that's a correct answer. Then it says determine Craig's average speed to the nearest tenth of a mile per hour for his entire trip. So all you need to do is take the average speed from point A to point E. Okay? So we're finding the slope. So we're finding the slope from A to E. Okay? Average speed means slope. That's what that means. Average speed means slope, which is the change in the distance over the change in the time. Okay? So here we go. The slope, which is the change in y over the change in x, which is going to be this. This point is 0, 0. And I said before that this point is the point 7, 230. So we have 230 minus 0 over 7 minus 0. That's going to be 230 over 7. When you plug this into your calculator, you get 32.9 miles per hour. That is the average speed that he was driving over the course of his trip. All right, that's how you do question number 34. Number 35, here we go. Given this information, solve the equation g of x equals 2k of x algebraically for x to the nearest tenth. Okay, so it says algebraically, so we can't use any... Well, we can use graphing calculator technology, but there has to be some sort of work shown. So it's saying here, now know what it's saying here. It's saying take the equation g of x and set it equal to double k of x. So 2x squared plus 3x plus 10, set it equal to double of kx, which is 2x plus 16. That's what that means, okay? Now we're just going to solve for x. Not too bad. Distribute the 2. We get 2x squared plus 3x plus 10 is equal to 4x plus 32. Okay. We're going to subtract the 4x and subtract the 32. Subtract the 4x, subtract the 32. Those cancel. We get 2x squared minus x minus 22. Set that equal to the number 0. Now, the problem here, folks, is this is not factorable. This is not factorable by GCF, by dots, by trinomial, by any of that. We are forced to use the quadratic formula. Here we go. So we get x is equal to negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Plug in your information. So we get negative 1 because, okay, so your a in this, your a is your 2, b is negative 1, c is negative 22. Just to let you know. So plug all this in. Oops. There's 2. Okay, and now you just simplify a little bit further. So we get positive 1 plus minus the square root. Underneath the radical is 177 when you evaluate that, all over 4. Now, this you need to type into the calculator. There's no other way that you could solve for this without the use of a calculator. And it says round to the nearest tenth. Okay, so if you type that in, here's what we get. Control division, 1 plus the square root of 177 over 4. We get this answer. Oops. We get that answer. Now, the problem is, ladies and gentlemen, is that there are 2 answers. It's plus minus. So you need to put a plus first. Then you need to go up and copy it again. And you need to put in a minus sign. So there are 2 answers. There's negative 3.1. You take that 7, you round it up because it's to the nearest tenth. And you get 3.6. Okay, so we get x is equal to, swirly bracket, negative 3.1, comma, 3.6. Those are your answers. That's your solution to the system. Okay, not too bad of a question. Then it asks for a follow-up. Explain why you chose the method you used to solve this quadratic equation. Okay, so we use a quadratic formula, right? So there's a really easy answer that you could use, or there's like my complicated answer. So you could say what in the following. You could say that the quadratic formula always works, literally always works, for a quadratic equation. So that's the easy way. That's the easy explanation. Or you could do the Trevor Clark way. Trevor did it this way. I said this. the quadratic formula was chosen because a does not equal 1. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Skipped a line. Because 2x squared minus x minus 22 equals 0 was not factorable because, sorry, that should be a BC, because a does not equal 1, meaning that the first term does not equal 1, it equals 2, okay? The basic trinomial method, by figuring out what adds to the linear term, meaning the middle term, and multiplies to the constant term, did not work. Okay, that's the that is the Trevor Clark complicated answer. You could do whatever you want. Both of them are equally acceptable answers. Okay, moving on to number 36. Almost done with this exam. Almost done. We're almost there. Michael has $10 in a savings account. Option 1 says that it will add $100 to his account each week. Option 2 will double the amount of his account at the end of each week. Write a function in terms of x to model each option of saving. Okay, so option 1, all right, option 1 says, and I'm going to call this f of x. It says that he currently has $10 in his savings account right now, and option 1 says that he will add $100 each week. Ladies and gentlemen, the x in this case represents the number of weeks, okay? It could be 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, so on and so forth. So it's the $10 plus the $100 times the amount of weeks that he has. The second option, option 2, says that he will take the $10, I'm going to call this g of x, my apologies, g of x is equal to his $10 for his starting amount, and he's doubling it raised to the x power. Okay, this is exponential growth. This is doubling. Okay, so these are his two options. You would get 2 points if you got those right. Now, for the follow-up question, Michael wants to have at least $700 in his account by the end of 7 weeks to buy a mountain bike. Determine which option or options will enable him to reach his goal. Justify your answer. So what we're going to do is this. I'm going to take 7 and I'm going to plug it into f of x, which is, again, 10 plus 100x, okay? So I'm going to find f of 7. F of 7, we're going to take the 7, we're going to plug in it for x. So we get 10 plus 100 times 7, okay? That's 10 plus 7 times 100 is 700. He will get $710 from option 1. So he's okay. He has $710. He has $10 left over to buy his mountain bike. All right, so that's option 1. Option 2 is, again, g of x equals 10 times 2 raised to the x. Let's go ahead and plug in the number 7. So we get g of 7 is equal to 10 times 2 to the 7th power. Okay? 2 to the 7th power is the number 128. So we just take 10 times 128. That will give you an amount of $1,028. So he has a lot of money if he picks option 2. But the question's not asking which one has more. It's saying which of the following option or options will allow him to reach his goal. Well, he only needs $700 to reach his goal. So technically, both of them work. So here's your answer. Both options will allow him to achieve his goal. Because f of x and g of x exceeds his goal of $700 at time t equals 7 weeks. All right, that's how you do that question.